what were the ideas that didn't pick up, that didn't run? And I was rereading the 1992 paper that Gordon Conway and I wrote, and I was quite startled to see the ideas which were in there which didn't run and have not really been picked up on. And there they are. I mean, livelihood intensity, which I still think is a useful concept, because you can have livelihood intensive development, which is adding to livelihoods in many ways, which does not involve growth. It's absolutely not necessary. You can have livelihood intensive development through security of land, you can have it through redistribution, you can have it through better health services. There are many different initiatives which can be livelihood intensive. So that's one that didn't take off. Then there was sustainable livelihood thinking, which was perhaps too messy, but it's in some of the early papers.
Can you again clarify the difference between sustainable livelihoods framework and the thinking?
Well, the idea, but it wasn't well articulated, was that analysing a particular situation, one would think in terms of sustainable livelihoods, rather than thinking in terms of production or in thinking of conventional development. And it's in some of the early papers, but it didn't really take off in that form. It came out. I mean, you could say that sustainable livelihoods thinking is very much embodied in the 1997 diagram. And so it took off there, but there was no direct. I don't think there was any direct connection with the early thinking, and I think it was because it just wasn't well thought out, and it didn't have a diagram. No, but the diagram's been, I think, tremendously important and significant in the spread. Then the idea of net livelihood effects just died, as far as I know, which is again in the 1992 paper. This was the idea that, I mean, you could increase a number of livelihoods, but they might destroy or weaken other livelihoods. So you could have what appeared to be something that was good because there were more livelihoods, but actually bad because it destroyed other livelihoods. And there are plenty of examples of that. So that never took off, as far as I know. Then there was the idea of net environmental demands, which was directed at us in the north. I mean, sustainable livelihoods was all directed at them. That's what took off, the direction at them. The idea of looking at ourselves and of environmental accounting, which again is in the 1992 paper, that it took off, but a completely separate stream took it off. It had nothing to do with that paper, I think. And that whole part, the idea that we should look at ourselves and how are our livelihoods now affecting the livelihoods of future generations, and looking towards the future, which again links with the discounting point, that, as far as I know, never took off. So there's some puzzles here. We talked about sustainable livelihoods for future generations. We were recommending that there should be members of Parliament whose specific job was to represent future generations in all debates. I don't think that one has taken off. So you can ask why didn't these take off? Well, they weren't measurable. They were rather vague. There were no champions. I don't think that they answered any institutional needs. And they were what one might call an inconvenient application. It's much easier to apply sustainable livelihoods to them than it is to apply the concept in a broader sense to us.